June 30th, 1950. President Truman commits American military forces to South Korea as the majority military force along with other countries in a coalition military. 16 nations comply. General Douglas MacArthur takes command on the following day. September 18, 1950, North Korean troops drove U.S. and ROK forces to the southeastern corner of South Korea and established a defensive position about the port of Pusan known as the Pusan Perimeter. September 15, 1950. General MacArthur constructs a daring plan to rescue the defenders of Pusan and cut North Korean supply lines. In preparation for an all-out assault, the UN must paralyze the North Koreans' ability to resupply. The railway must be destroyed.
Few combatants moved out to war in the summer of 1950 with more vigorous determination than did Britain's Royal Marine Commandos. Following the government's short-notice decision that August to activate a special raider unit for duty in Korea, the Royal Marines quickly selected Lieutenant Colonel Douglas B. Drysdale to raise and command the 41 Independent Commando Royal Marines. A highly regarded officer who had served with 3 Commando Brigade in the Far East during World War II, Drysdale moved immediately to fill the ranks of his new command. With some 150 officers and men thus assembled, the group, dressed in Admiralty-provided civilian suits, boarded commercial airliners for transport to the Far East under what British historian Max Hastings describes as melodramatic and wholly ineffectual security restrictions. Or in other words, a truly British covert off-the-books black operation. Immediately beginning an intensive, around-the-clock training program aboard Doyle's APDs and the recently arrived Perch, the Commandos quickly impressed the Americans with their enthusiasm and skill. As a report observed, these Commandos were experienced raiders with a can-do attitude. They seemed to enjoy having more thrown at them than they could learn in the short time available, and rose to the occasion by becoming a well-trained submarine raiding team in a remarkably short time. Like their SOG predecessors, the raiders had precious little time to train together, less than a month, to develop the skills that would help ensure their mutual survival in the face of a disciplined, well-armed, and unforgiving enemy. Moreover, this enemy would be expecting their arrival, having been alerted to the UN raiding threat posed by the SOG missions.
C Troop 41 Commando boarded the base for a strike against the North Korean coastline on the night of 6 to 7 October 1950. Their target, a railway 150 miles north of Hunnam. This raid took place only some 80 miles south of the Soviet border and was the first British commando raid launched from an APD. This first raid was more complicated than most that would follow, as the surveillance radar on the base failed just before its boats were launched, forcing its raiding partner, the Wontok, to assume control and guidance of the boats on the long, slow approach to the beach. A British journalist accompanied this mission all the way ashore, subsequently publishing his experiences in vivid detail.
The umbilical tow rope attaching the black rubber raft to the LCPR has been unhitched. We are 12 men gliding quickly by paddle towards the hills which loom nearer. I never before felt the full menace of the verb, loom. One officer has swum ahead alone, a tiny winking red light tells us that he has got there and that it is at least possible to land. The silence grows half perceptibly into sound, the rhythmical swish of surf. For a second or two we are caught violently in a chaos of foam. We hit something solid, out, quick, get out, come on, for Christ's sake. It is an urgent but not quick task to drag the boat up to the beach. No tug-o-war team ever heaved so desperately. This patch of sand becomes Commando HQ. A new, temporary bridgehead is established in North Korea, less than 100 miles from the Soviet frontier. Troop Commander Lieutenant Derek Pounds had told the troops, civilians are to be left alone if they stay indoors. If they interfere, they get rubbed out. A Korean man came out and wandered about. Some were for shooting him, but it was less noisy to knock him on the head. I was sorry for him in a way, the Marine who did it said afterwards, showing me the teeth marks on his rifle, but he oughtn't to have been out there. The long tow back to the ship was an agreeable anticlimax. The Marines' wet clothing clung icily about them, yet there was sense of fulfillment and of intense relief. On board there was a miniature bottle of brandy for each man.
That December, the UDTs had begun a philosophical and operational evolution from its World War II beginnings from which they would not turn back. Its onshore raiding experiences in Korea would underpin a slow but steady growth in such capabilities until the early 1960s, at which time President John F. Kennedy set the UDT on the irreversible path that led to the present-day Navy SEAL teams.
Subscribe for more.